Hi, greetings to Hayle Community School. My name is David Rowe. I'm speaking to you from my house in Charleston, South Carolina in the US. I've lived over here for about 3 years, and before that I lived in Truro. And I'm a friend of Mrs. Thomas, and she asked me if I could talk to you a little bit about what's happened here in the last few days. So what has happened? Last Wednesday night, I was at home and I was having a really bad evening. My baby was not going to sleep and my wife and I were not speaking to each other, as things happen. And then at about 10 p.m. I saw on Twitter that there had been a shooting downtown in Charleston, which is about 1.5 miles from our house. And it immediately put into perspective our bad evening. What happened was this: there's a guy called Dylan, a white guy who lived about 100 miles away from here. He drove down into Charleston and he went to a black church, a church that was led by black people and has historically been mainly black people. And he went to their Wednesday evening prayer meeting and they welcomed him in. And he sat with them for about 45 minutes, then he stood up and shot them all, except for one adult and one 5-year-old girl who survived because her grandmother told her to play dead. Why did it happen? Well, this guy, he's admitted to doing it. They haven't gone through the trial process yet, but he said he did it. They caught him the day after. He said he did it because he wanted to start a war between black people and white people in America. And he specifically chose that church because it's a famous church. It's actually the first church led by black people in the whole of the South. It was started in the 1820s, and in that time, if you know anything about American history, most black people in the South were slaves, and it was illegal for black people to be leaders of a church. That's the history of this church. That's why he chose that church. And that's why he went there and killed those people. So what's happened since then? Well, Wednesday night I couldn't sleep. As you can imagine, it was quite shocking. It was quite close to home, quite scary. A lot of people were scared that there would be a big reaction, that there will be riots, there will be violence. I live in a neighborhood which is mainly black people, and some people were asking me, do you feel scared? I didn't honestly, but that was a lot what people were thinking, that it's just going to be a scary situation, that out of anger against a racist murder, some horrible stuff was going to happen. But instead, Charleston has not reacted with violence and malice and hatred. It has been full of daily exhibitions of love, of prayer, of forgiveness. There have been meetings, big prayer vigils every day. There's been marches through the streets, joint church services yesterday, Sunday, and also last night, about 9,000 people got together to walk across we have a big harbour bridge here. They walked across the big harbour bridge, all holding hands, as a sign of unity, that this attempt to start a war between black people and white people was not going to work. In addition to that, outside the church where it happened, every day, constantly, there's been people there. Some people have just been hugging each other the whole time, not really doing anything more than that. Other people have been praying, other people have been singing. When I went down there on Friday evening, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people laying flowers in front of the church, writing messages and sticking it to the gates and singing. And other people were just wanting to be there. That's kind of the response from the community. And also, a lot of money has been donated to pay for the funerals of the people that were killed, to build up and bless that church that, 4 of their ministers were killed, and to pay for community projects that would benefit the city. So this has been happening the last 5 days now, and it's been really quite surprising, quite shocking. But the thing that's been the biggest, most in your face surprise has been the reaction of the families of the people who are killed. On Friday, I think, the families were given the chance to speak via a video link to the guy who killed their parents, their sister, their members of their family. As you can imagine, these messages delivered face to face on a video link were very emotional, but what they were all saying is, "You've hurt us, but we forgive you. You've tried to cause division, but you've actually given us an excuse to love each other more." And that's the big message that's been coming across. And it's important to remember that this city it's got a complicated history, especially in terms of races. Charleston is a port. It's where slaves from Africa entered America. And so it made its money out of exploitation of black people. And after slavery ended, black people became kind of an underclass because no one would employ them. And they became segregated and lived in separate communities to the white people and to everyone else. So for example, at the end of my street, there's a park. And up until the 1960s, it was illegal for white people to go in that park. That was a black-only park. And then about a mile in that direction, there's another park, a lot nicer park. That was for white people only. The races were kept apart. That's what segregation is called. And so this is a complicated city, and so when something that happens is so obviously racist and hate-filled, you're worried how people are going to react. But what's actually happened is that the whole city has come together, determined to respond in a way that is not full of hate, which is full of love, which is not full of rough justice, but is full of reconciliation and caring and support. And it's been amazing to be here. And I hope that I've just been able to convey to you a little bit of the vibe of this city at the moment. One of the questions Mrs. Thomas sent me to think about is, what can we learn from this? And the answer to that is probably too big to answer. But I would recommend to all of you to watch the videos of the families of the people who are killed, and listen to those people and see how they are dealing with the horror and the sadness and the grief that they've been going through. And that you will learn in looking at them what being a really excellent human is about. Okay, so signing off from Charleston, South Carolina. Good to speak to you this morning. I hope Hayle Community School is a good place to be and you all turn into excellent humans. All right, take care.